I'm sorry. Keep me out of the way.
All right, we have 6 o'clock. I call this meeting of Silver Lake Salem Joint School District 1 to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the approval of the consent agenda, and I think we at the minimum need to go out the 226 meeting because Amy was not here.
We pull out monthly financials as well.
Very good. Let's go, since there's only 2 items, we will bypass the consent agenda this month, and we'll go through each of the sub-items. Let's go ahead and start with the monthly financials.
Kim, I saw 2 charges, one for black portable radios for $3,000 on 228, and the other one was $2,100 on 37, for $2,000. What is?
Both of those are to equip all of our staff with walkie-talkies. So now the entire staff has walkie-talkies available.
And all the teachers, all
Yep.
their professionals, right?
Yep.
And then the last one was Dousman. There was a charge, obviously the monthly charge for $12,600, but then I also charged for root oil, so gas.
Yes,
Instead of gas charge
Yes.
on top of the contract, right? That's pretty standard.
Yes.
That's all.
All right, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve monthly financials.
Joe seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I forgot to mention, please note that Mike Gentile is absent. Thank you. Now on to the approval of board minutes for the February 26th, 2024. Does anyone have any questions for the minutes? All those in favor of accepting the board minutes from February 26th?
Aye.
Aye. Motion opposed? Abstain? We have 1 abstain from,
So who made the
I had to
motion?
make a motion.
So you did the motion and the second was Amy?
Yes,
No, I second.
I'm sorry.
Amy
Yeah, I couldn't hear.
I'm sorry.
Joe second.
Okay, and then you've got 3 ayes and 1 abstain.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And now we move on to the meeting of March 13th.
Make a motion to approve.
Amy seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. On to public comments, I would like to make a statement before we get started. Up next is public comments. As noted on the agenda, this is a meeting of the school board and is being called for the purposes of conducting the district's business. To the extent a member of the public attends an open session meeting of the school board, it is primarily in the capacity of the observer rather than as a meeting participant. But we have set aside time, which is coming up right now, for public comments. As a reminder, public participation is subject to rules and expectations of reasonable decorum. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. You cannot give away your time to another speaker. Speakers must direct their comments to the board, not to others attending the meeting. Speakers must avoid statements that are personally directed, abusive, obscene, profane, or threatening. Board members will not respond to comments as it would violate open meetings law. So you can talk, we can't respond. And as a reminder, if you speak during public participation portion during the board's meeting, you do so at your own risk. It is advisable to consider carefully whether you want to plan to say what you plan to say is harmful to another person's reputation or other interests, or whether you are confident that it is factually accurate. If the content is harmful or it is untruthful, you may be risking personal liability for the statements you are making in public today. This is not legal advice, but simply a warning that just because you are speaking in a board meeting does not mean the board, the district can protect you. With that, are there any public comments? All right, very good, thank you. We are going to probably shrink this down going forward after I'm gone. This is my last meeting. But we will have some facsimile of this to precede the public comments each time so that everyone knows how the public comments work. So now we move on to reports. And first is mine. I have a short statement. I just wanted to express my thanks. My thanks to fellow board members and best wishes on overseeing the district's business and as a taxpayer while keeping a keen eye on expenses. My thanks to the administration, admin support, and the front office for their continued leadership, assistance to anyone in need, and keeping everything rolling along day after day. My thanks to the teachers and support staff who are likely the first face an incoming family sees and get an introduction to the Riverview style. You are on the front line with our most valuable resource, the students. My thanks to the citizens and taxpayers of our district who I've tried to serve fairly and whenever possible in their best interests. And finally, I'm humbled by my experience here at Riverview and look forward to a continuity of care, hard work, and celebrating successes. And with that, we move on. Thank you all. And now we move on to the art presentation from our second grade and Mrs. Gauger.
All right, I'm here with second grade. Would you guys like to introduce yourself? You guys want to line up, please, so everybody can see you. Just turn around. What we have here are the looms that we made about a month ago, and that's what we're going to talk about today in our process with it. So do I start here?
Ella, Ethel,
And then Mrs. Gauger, if I didn't say that already. But you can also see kind of how I use my slideshow with the art that we do. And here I have the vocabulary, so we showed them that. Go to the next slide. We talked about the Navajo culture and weaving. We did show a video of a Navajo woman weaving so that they could kind of see the authentic process of it. Of course, we're doing it on paper, and this is the first step that I do with second grade. I tried it with first grade a couple years ago, and there were just a few tears, so we kind of moved on to second grade, although first graders can do it. Next slide. We had a book, The Goat and the Rug, which is about Geraldine the goat telling the story about Glen May, her owner, weaving the Navajo culture, how they did it. So let's see here, what's happening in this picture? Does any of you want to explain what's happening?
cutting off all of his wool.
So in the story, she cut off all of the wool, and then seeing what happened when, or what did Glen May use to dye the wool?
Well, she's good in his plants, but then
Yeah, so they learned about how they could use plants to dye the wool, but then in the story, the goat ate the plants, so then she had to go to the market to buy them. So we started to prepare a loom. So what did we have to do, Carter? So we had our paper. First, oh, sorry, Ella, what did we do? We painted our loom, so that was kind of a new step that I did, which is kind of fun. So they got to choose the medium that they painted with, so they had a couple different options. But then what did we have to do, Carter? Yeah, we folded it in half, and then we had a stop line. So that we knew, and we made a big deal about the stop line to create the loom. We then had to cut it in half. So how do we know how to make half? So this is kind of how we did math a little bit here.
We cut it in the middle.
We cut it in the middle, and then, where's their names? Oh, we got everybody's names on here. I did have everybody's names on here. Who was gonna answer that question?
No, there were things like,
That's weird, on my slide, it has their names.
it was B.
All right. Everybody's names were on here, so we knew who to answer. Dean, how did we cut it into quarters? We cut it in half, and how do we know to cut it into quarters? What did we talk about? How do we make it into quarters? Yeah, we cut each half in half. And then who is gonna answer about the eighths? All right, what are we gonna say, Jonathan? We have it in quarters. Yep, and each quarter, we did what? Yeah, we cut one more half of each quarter. So now we have the eighth. So then we've created our loom. So next slide. So then, Carter, do you want to read that? Now we're weaving. So we have our loom, and we talked about, this is, I know, Ella, right? That's yours. Yep. We talked about AB pattern, and they talk about that in math. So what did you do for your AB pattern? Do you want to show them yours? So I did, oh, sorry. Your AB pattern. So they could also do an ABC pattern, and I let them do any colors that they wanted to choose for the strips, but a lot of them did the patterns. So then this was Ethel, if I remember right. Ethel, what did we do about the weaving? We had a great big loom here. For an example, what did you learn to do the weaving?
So this started under, so I just started over and then over
Over, under, and sometimes we talked about like the snake going through the grass over, under. And like the Navajo Indians, we had to tap the thread down. So in the video, or when they're weaving, they learned that they had to do what? And that was, did you talk about that one?
they had to like push it down.
Yep. So in the video, they were tapping it down. We also had to do that. And we knew that we weren't weaving correctly if we tapped it down and they all fell to the bottom, didn't we? So we knew the weaving was wrong. Is this one yours, Jonathan? So, Jonathan, you want to talk about the pattern and how you knew if you're doing it correctly? Yep, so you can see the pattern was over the under. All right, next slide. And then we did our final touches, and they had choices, and some did both, and some chose. So if you guys want to turn around and show them, they could add fringe or tie strings on the end, and they use the hole punch to punch their own holes, and they cut the strings and tie their own knots. But Carter has both, and some did the fringe. And then this is Mabel. She's not here today, but I thought hers was kind of neat because she did the fringe and she did the yarn on the opposite side. And then she also found some cutouts, did little designs on there. So that was good. If anybody wants to talk about, whoever feels comfortable, what was the most difficult part? So you guys can talk about what's the most difficult part. So I turn around and tell them.
I think the most difficult part was doing the AB pattern. I didn't know which colors to do or which way I should start.
Do you want to talk about it?
Difficult part was when you had to do like the hole punches because sometimes they would just stick in there and then you would have to like, push it down on the top and then grab it by the bottom and lift it out.
Carter, would you want to talk?
I did tie knots. I did go.
Yep.
messing up doing the AB pattern. I kept on doing pink, and then I did purple, and then just did pink.
Jonathan? Do you guys want to talk about what the best part of weaving was for you? Anybody want to talk about it?
I think that the best part was putting on the paper footage.
All right, Dean,
I was painting it.
painting it. Right, Carter,
Painting
painting it. Ella,
it. Painting it.
painting it. There's for the win. Yep. What do you got, Jonathan?
Going under it.
You liked the weaving? They were so excited the first day when they weren't done. They're like, "Can we take these home now?" Like, no, we have to like finish them and hang them. So it's kind of neat to see how much excitement they get. So then in third grade, I do this. And Peyton, if you want to come up and show her sisters or her brothers presenting, you want to show yours? Did you bring it?
No, I forgot.
Oh, they're doing another type of weaving in fifth grade too. So we kind of build every couple of years on that. All right. Do you guys have any questions for them? No? Good job, guys. You did
I don't want to. I already have.
Okay, thank you. Once again, Mrs. Geiger and the second grade class. Let's go ahead and move on to district administrator's portion with celebrations.
Before Andrea starts, all the parents, and I'm so happy to see more teachers here and all the parents here. Thanks for bringing the kids. That's what we're all about. So it makes sense to have some of our school board meetings, have our kids talking about what they're learning and celebrating that together as a community. So all of you are welcome to stay for the majority of the meeting, for the rest of the meeting, but I also understand that you have second graders and you may want to take them. So it's not rude if you want to leave. So I also wanted to say that. We're going to start with celebration. One of my celebrations right before Andrea talks is that all of our staff has walkies. So I felt really good about that. We ordered them at the beginning of the year. It's an added safety piece for our district. If there's ever something we need to do as a whole community and teachers or someone's not by a phone or they're outside, they have a walkie in which they can hear our own calls. Tim Jensen was going to be here as well. He got sick, so he went home. So Andrea's on deck with all of the celebrations that she's going to share from our visit to Greendale and Muskego.
My favorite part of the celebration. So I want to thank the board and also parents for being willing to have us change our calendar in the midst of the school year and giving us the full day off for us to go do school visits. It's very difficult because we don't have a lot of subs, even though I recruit parents all the time to sub. So I really appreciate the fact that we were able to do that because we were able to get out of the building and go to other schools. I took a group of 13 staff members to Greendale. We went to Highland View Elementary, which is a K-5 school. And we were there the whole day observing and doing some debriefing. And I shared with the board, I don't know if it's up there, but I shared when we came back, we asked the staff just to fill out like things that they, noticed, they really enjoyed, what was great about it. Some takeaways from everyone, there was lots of comments, but that staff just appreciated being able to get out because going to see other teachers, you kind of have those aha moments, and then you also have those, oh, I do that. I feel pretty good about that. So I really like the staff that were with me. A lot of times were like just different ways to engage kids, different ways they structured their classroom. That was really a big thing. Just seeing like the things on the walls and charts and, just getting some fresh ideas, being able to get out and really being able to talk to other people is also great outside of the building. So it was really nice that the staff took time to meet with some of our staff members. So, our first graders got to talk to the first grade teachers there, just about things that they try and what they see working. They really enjoyed, we saw a reading, they adopted a reading curriculum that our reading committee has looked at. And so we got to see that in action, which was also really nice. And so just a lot of the continuity from grade to grade, including 4K, which was really interesting to see with 4K kind of being new and seeing like a curriculum being used there all the way down to the 4K level and seeing what kids can do. So that was another great takeaway. And yeah, just the collaboration and you know I came back and was in classrooms and I saw teachers doing things that we saw there and just like in awe, like, oh, our kids could do this too. So I think it was just really refreshing. So again, I really appreciate the fact that we were able to do that. Tim went to, and I know you went with too, so Muskego, they took a group that were really there to kind of look more at co-teaching between general ed and special ed, how they use their educational assistants. So Tim wanted me to talk about, it was really interesting to see how they use their educational assistants compared to what we do and some of the things that they try. He liked that there was a lot of co-planning there with the regular ed and the special ed. So that's something like we really want to look at with scheduling, which is not always the easiest thing to do in a K-8. So just looking like maybe if that's one of our focus so that there can be more of that collaboration time. And just other ways that they group students and included, you know, special ed students into grouping. I know you went, so I'm not sure if there are other things that had.
Yeah, I think the beauty of it is our teachers came back, they were able to debrief. Now we look at that as an admin team and look at some of the things that they're talking about so that it informs us as to where we need to go and some next steps. So it was a great way to get our staff out, get them to give us some more feedback. You know, we intentionally built a calendar based on what teachers were telling me at the start of the school year, excuse me, about needing more collaboration time. That was built in, thinking about this ahead of time, because it's a barrier to doing some of these things if you don't have that intentionally thought out ahead of time. And so it was nice to be able to see some of those things in action. I know our special ed teachers that went with us were really excited to see the differences and had a lot of really good questions. It was a very productive day. I want to make sure that highlights were there. Otherwise, okay. Act 20 updates. I just wanted to update the board.
Students, staff, family, board, survey after this one.
Yeah, right after. Oh, you know what? It's turned.
Oh, it turned.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't catch that. Act 20 is the new reading law. I updated you, I think in December about that, but those are the 4 that are up for being able to be reimbursed by funding. The other update that is good for us is that the implementation of the universal screener that was in Act 20 has been moved to January and not September. So they wanted to implement the universal screener for K-3 that is likely going to be new to a lot of schools. But they weren't going to release it until June, which would be very hard to do training and implementation of it. So they put that off until January. As I said, there's four programs that qualify for the funding. And part of what we're going to be looking at over the summer and throughout the school year is based on our MLSS work, our SPED work, and the things that we're pushing towards. What program now needs that, and do we want, as a unified staff, a program to be implemented, or do we want to go in a different route? So those are the next steps. We've been taking our time and making sure that we want to make sure we have everybody on board and understand the pros and cons of programming. Student and family surveys, just want to give you a quick update on that. The student and family surveys are still being worked on by our internal team. They sent it to me and I gave them some feedback around some questions to add, some things to think about. And so they will be working on that again. So I should have a final draft for the April meeting. The goal of it is to give it in May The staff survey was sent out on Friday, March 8th, and will close on April 3rd. So that the leadership team then can present the results in April or May at the next board meeting. Yeah.
With the survey, can we, as the board, I would like to see all of them, from the students, the families.
Yep.
Like, make sure we collect them all and we get to have to see them all ourselves as well.
It's like, I mean, it's the synopsis of it is printed right from the thing, so there's nothing, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
So we can get the printed copies, so we can.
there's no printed copies because it's all online. So when you, there's a button, you can press summary and it shows you the graph of where things are.
Okay. And then if there's any comments, so
Yep.
we just print it off.
Yep, so I will include the comments.
So you copy and paste it into,
We will, yes, we will have all of that for the board.
And then if we're not looking at pushing out the student and family surveys till May, can we push to have the April board meeting have a desk survey to the best? So kind of,
We can push for that. Yeah, I have to get it all compiled and put together with the highlights and the other things with the leadership team.
yeah, we can push for April.
And just to clarify, so we will have access to all the surveys for students, staff, and families. Thank you.
Okay, grant updates. Tim was going to do, we're going to take team the grant slide. So we talked about the Stronger Connections grant that we received for $240,000 in our last meeting. It was a quick turnaround. When we applied for it, we applied for additional student services members to address some of our SEL needs. We applied for summer school and some mental health programming. So we've been starting to talk about this within a very short time. DPI reached out to us and said, yeah, thanks, we're really glad, or we're really happy that we approved $240,000. We'd like to pull $40,000 back of it now because we do not believe that you should be using it for summer school. So Tim and I reached out to them and said, okay, you saw the grant and you approved it, what's going on? And we didn't have summer school, so it's not planting. And they said, well, you're supposed to use your local funds. So right now where it stands, and we'll talk more about the summer school programming a little later in the board meeting, is we are waiting to see if we can have a portion of it summer school funded, the enrichment portion of it funded. But right now, as it stands, the summer school cannot come out of that budget. What else can we have around that?
Obviously that's where the calibrating, when we found that out, so we're like, ooh, okay.
well, in the past, I don't know if you know Andrea or you know Sue, summer school itself, because of the reimbursement on the FTE, didn't it, much of it fund from that? Didn't we gain funds from basically the status of, the students
Like
attending
the students
and
get
getting partial
fractional,
credit?
yeah, it wasn't a
Fractional
very
credit.
big amount at all.
Okay.
Yeah, the FTE is not a large
It's
amount.
minimal.
Yeah. So it doesn't really like equal out as far as like paying for the teachers. What does equal out is if you charge, like if we're gonna have a cooking class, we're gonna charge for it, you have to make sure you use all those funds, and you can't make money off of summer school. But as far as like the cost of summer school, it's usually like budgeted to cover like the teachers. But then the FTEs will go to, and then just FYI, we were one of 6 districts in our CISA that received a grant. And there was only 40 districts throughout the state, and we were one of them. So we're really happy. We're happy they want to take money away, but also happy that we did apply and did get that.
So later in the board meeting, one of the things we're going to be asking for approval for is to fund a pupil services position to support this grant. So the pupil services position would be something along the lines of a guidance, a counselor, a school counselor, a social worker, someone that can support community involvement. One of the things that came up is having more community events here. The school districts that have that generally have either a community person, they have a fund 80 that funds that. We don't have that. We do have a group of parents that are luckily taking on some of that, but the goal would be that over the course of these 2 years, part of this, we hope, depending on the candidates we get, that's the issue, is like what kind of candidates do we get, would, because it's only 2 years, we would get the community involvement started. It would give me time to get into, to look at Fund 80, how we can get that as part of our district, so that community events can be more a part of what we do at Riverview. Again, you know, it's hard to do when you don't have a staff member that's devoted to that. So again, one of our parents is heading up a group that is hosting a bingo night, so we're starting a little bit, but it's a big task if you're going to do a regular programming after school and really get your community involved. So again, that position is only 2 years, and it is completely supported by the grant. The idea would be to build the capacity of our staff around SEL and scaffold off so that when we go back down to one counselor, that counselor would be handling kids that are really what we call tier 3, really in need of some more intensive support around counseling, and not running in classrooms and doing all of those things, but really supporting the kids that are in high need. Have any questions regarding that? Okay, so there's board comments on the agenda. It's written as board comments on above and board comments for school culture and conduct.
So for the board comments on above, that's anything that's gone on up during the meeting up to this point that the board might have questions for. Does anyone have any questions on the board regarding anything that's occurred during the meeting?
I just want to thank you, Dave, for 17 years of service. That's very unheard of, and it's not easy to do, so I appreciate the time you put into it and the time you put your family to get back to the community.
Thanks, Brian.
I second that. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Brittany.
Thank you for your guys' on that. And I also would like to add good job on the grant. You know, we got some of that taken away, so.
Potentially taken away though, right?
Yeah.
We could say, okay, we're not gonna use those funds. After all, we'll find other use for it, so we could recover those.
Yep, and I want to thank, and I haven't asked before, but thank you, Dave, for supporting me in my first year and for being available, and I'm sure you and Kathy are looking forward to free Monday. Every Monday is a free Monday.
I don't know if Kathy is.
As a culture and climate, it's come to my attention that comments that I made during the board comment section of the last board meeting have created some confusion, and I'd like to clarify that those comments were my own, not intended to be taken as board comments. I must admit I have some public speaking fears. I get a little nervous, and I was kind of speaking from stream of consciousness. I don't recall in exact detail everything that I said. But I do know I wouldn't say anything that I don't personally stand behind. I would encourage any stakeholder interested in more clarification to reach out to me as a fellow community member. And although I'm unable to and wouldn't comment on any specific matters relating to school or board business, I would be happy to elaborate on my personal perspective generally. I do think Riverview is an excellent school. My 17-year-old excelled here. I'm excited that 4 of my other 5 children will collectively be attending Riverview for the next decade. I'm excited to watch our great staff come together to cultivate even more success in new areas of education. I also look forward to being able to help foster an environment of open, safe, and honest communication with the unified direction of continuing to provide great education for our children, as well as constantly examining our own processes to achieve even greater educational success for an even broader range of learners. I would welcome other board members, staff, and stakeholders to support these perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
I'm going to speak on behalf of my JTL can't be here today, but he asked me to give a little statement form. I would like to, and this is on behalf of Mike, I would like to express that as someone who has been on the board for 8 years and a member of the Riverview community for many more, I've never witnessed or heard of a culture of bullying. In fact, I've heard about the inclusive, nurturing, and family environment that Riverview embodies. The opinions expressed by other members of this board do not represent my views, and I am proud to be part of this outstanding community and school. I would like to extend my gratitude to all the individuals who contribute to making Riverview the special place it is. Let's continue working together to uphold Riverview's excellence and find ways to improve further.
I'd like to add, I personally have not been made aware of any bullying issues in our school since I've become a board member. With that being said, I have heard from a few people several contradicting things in regards to myself. Number one, people don't feel comfortable coming to me because I am friends with other board members and I am pro-teacher. And then an opposite contradicting statement would be people don't come to me because I'm pro-administration. Both of these statements contradict themselves. Both of these statements are incorrect, toxic, and counterproductive to the main reason we are all here, and that's to support kids. I understand that change is difficult, and naturally problems will arise. As a board member, we have to, and we will follow policy and procedure. When parents and or staff have concerns, policy and procedure will dictate how we as a board respond. As a board, we have implemented student, family, and staff surveys in order to get feedback from all stakeholders. And we will use this information to govern and plan for the future. I have championed the passing of a strategic plan so that we as a school community can collaborate and create a plan for who we will be as a school, regardless of who sits on this board, who the superintendent or who the principal is, and who is teaching our kids. In my opinion, this school board needs to start having the important conversations that revolve around students and their needs. We need to focus on closing the achievement gap. We are a 5-star school, and that should be cheered and celebrated. The state report card, however, is just one data piece that we need to look at. What do our achievement gaps look like for all students? What do our achievement gaps look like for students whose families are economically disadvantaged? What do our achievement gaps look like based on race and ethnicity in ELA and math? How are we closing the gaps in ELA and math for our students with disabilities and IEPs? What trends exist from this data year to year? How are we challenging and extending the learning of our gifted and talented students as well? This is the work this school community should be focusing on, and it starts at the top of this school board. We need to start having these conversations. I believe we have the right people in this building to continue to make our school a place where families want to send their children. We need to increase our open enrollment, and we have to think outside the box in order to do that. From our dedicated veteran staff, who I know firsthand will do whatever it takes to positively impact the lives of students, to our entire administrative team that I believe will spark new ideas and progress our district as we continue to move forward. We have to come together, we have to work together, and we have to lean on each other. As a board member, I am team kids. There is no sides to choose other than what is best for kids. That means when a problem arises, I have to stay neutral and govern through policy and procedure. Every discussion I have and every decision I will make will be centered around what I believe is best for kids. If my wife and I are blessed enough to have children, they will come to Riverview, just as I and my 3 siblings did from 1988 to 2008. As I stated, every discussion I have, and decision I will make will be centered around what I believe is best for kids and rooted in policy and procedure. Thank you.
And now I'll speak on behalf of myself. I just want to say that, kind of to what Joe said, Brian said, Mike said it in email, I will always speak for myself unless I specifically ask another board member, because I can't be here, to speak on my behalf. Everyone at this board is representing them unless we say it is from the Riverview School Board. So, sorry if something was misinterpreted, but that is how it is.
Thank you, you three, and the one who substituted spoke this evening as well. All I want to add on to that, and I'll be brief. Brian touched on it several times during his well-prepared speech, and that has to do with our board policies. Back when Jim was on the board, we had it presented to us, the idea of having this package called Neola. And it was, especially for the first year, kind of pricey. Jim was a big supporter of it at the time, and it didn't take long to understand why. We had policies that hadn't been touched in 10 years, 20 years, and just to make the effort to get through the policies and try to get a look at it took years. So with the Neola board docs, as we know it, we were able to work with what was a boilerplate, and now we've had at least 2, I think 3 passes all the way through all of the policies at this point. Is it painful? Yes. That's why I've never sat on the policies committee, because it's heroic work, but it's legal work, and it's just not something I'm good at. I talk tech, and I would be part of that. So with this board docs, or this Neola, we have specific policies in place. Are they perfect? No, because there's some things that are left up to interpretation, and hopefully we never have to get legal assistance in the form of, taking it to any kind of litigation to solve things. But there is an excellent framework of how we deal with communicating with each other and how you should expect the board to respond. And really, that's what I wanted to mention tonight. When you do speak out on behalf of the school, everyone is interested in the children, keeping, in the interest of the children. And it can be a statement, it can be a byline, but it's true, and especially at this school. So I just want everyone to keep in mind, and I lost my train of thought, that, well, I've said it now, so we'll move on.
I learned last straight conscious.
Yes. All right, thank you all. Any other questions or comments regarding the school culture and climate? All right, now we move into new business.
And that was a perfect segue, because the first thing on new business is Neola policies. So, as Dave said, Neola puts forward policy changes that are technical in nature, and then ones that board approves. The Neola changes that appeared in your board packet this month are just technical, so they change pronouns, or there's a spelling error or something very, they don't have any real impact on anything. Does anybody have any questions about the Neola policies that were in your board packet that were just DA? Okay.
On the first one for the treasurer, who is the designated staff member that is tasked with those?
Sue and me.
And so what's the process for the treasurer working with the designated
Well,
staff?
they get the board financial, the updates, those are the annual report. That's
Thank you.
sure. The only other thing for this topic is we need 2 board members to meet with me if we're going to continue in the same way that we have continued, to look over the rest of the board policies that require board approval, and then make recommendations at our next board meeting or the May board meeting, not rushed, to those changes, for those changes. So is there anybody?
I know Mike and I were doing that.
Yeah.
Does that change, or do you need?
It can change, it doesn't need to stay the same. If you want to continue that work, I think Mike is up for it. I don't know if anybody else is interested, otherwise Brian.
Point that out if you are.
No, I forget I'm doing it.
Okay, all right, then I'll put a couple dates on get some dates on the calendar, and we'll go from there. Tonight is the first part of probably a number of conversations, but I wanted to give you a very estimated look at the Baird forecast model. This model, so our funding really comes from the things that you see along the top. We have non-recurring exemptions right now, but no recurring exemptions. The reason I'm giving you this formula at the top is because I want you to understand how much our resident membership plays into how much money we get into the district. Right now, this forecast model, so Baird forecasts out where we will be over the next 4 or 5 years. It's obviously an estimate because things change, biennial budgets change. You know, in the last biennial budget, Tony Evers signed into law that for the next 400 years, there'd be a $325 increase. Of course, that could change in 2 years. So there's changes that occur that you can't see. COVID happened. So this forecast, I'm going to tell you what it's built on, and it's, again, a very preliminary estimate. And the reason I'm doing it tonight is to help you, again, process our referendum timing. So it's built on a model of declining enrollment of 1.72%. That's the average of our decline over the past 5 years. It is the most conservative model, so it's based on a student membership number of 387. I say it's conservative because that number is likely not going to get any lower, only higher. I wanted to do a conservative model for you so that you get the worst case scenario kind of look at it. The model is also built on, model shows what our fund balance will be over the course of the next, I can't really see that too well, over the next 4 years. I can't get it. Okay. Years, you can see fund balances down there, and the percentage. And as a reminder, our board policy says we don't want to go below 30% of our fund balance, which will impact when we go to referendum.
Not to interrupt, so we could have a conversation about considering lowering that for change that
Yes.
policy.
Yes.
So, you know, Mike and I had a discussion about this. What do Chamberlain and Ott recommend for a fund balance?
Yeah, so I reached out to them, it's anywhere from 25 to 33%. He said there should be no problem with a 25% fund balance number either. I know many districts that have 20% even, but he was very comfortable with even a 25% fund balance.
Do you know what districts in our local area have that, like similar to us?
No, but I can find out.
I know in the past, we were more conservative than 30%.
Yep.
Because when we went to get financing, we had an excellent credit rating because of that 30% that we had. Start dipping below that, and it could potentially affect what they say the school solvency is.
This forecast is, like I said, very preliminary. Sue and I have begun working on expenditures, but this doesn't have all the expenditures loaded in. It has, it's based on last year's expenditures plus a 3% raise for staff. It takes that into account plus a percentage of the increase for benefits. So it's close to what the revenues will look like, but not exactly on because we don't have all of those numbers. So once we work a little bit more closely, Sue and I, we are meeting with Baird, and then Baird is going to come present a closer estimate to where this forecast model will be. Sue and I are still working on that. This month, we're hoping to do that, to do a special meeting, open board meeting, April 8th, to have Baird just come in just to do that, because the timing of when we have to decide about referendum for August is in May. So I want you to have as much information as possible to make that decision, which is why I brought the facilities planning organization in early as well, so you can hear from them what they recommend. So the district, like I said, fund balance policy states that we need to be at 30% or above. You can see that this forecast model keeps us within that 30% for this year and next year. So if the board believes there's a need for an operating referendum in the future to maintain the fund balance at 30% or higher, the district has the opportunity to go, and I'm going to show you on this next slide. In 2025, these are the two opportunities that we could go to referendum. The bold number is when the referendum question could be on the ballot. The number or the date above that is when we would have to decide to go to referendum. So in 2025, there are 2 opportunities, and then in 2026, there are 4 opportunities to go. And remember, we can only ask a question in the calendar year twice. But so we couldn't go 4 times in 2026. We can go 2. before our fund balance gets below 30%, according to this forecast model that is preliminary. So I wanted to share that with you so that you can digest it a little bit, continue to think about our timing for the referendum question, considering what you heard from PSI, the organization that's doing some of facilities planning, and then considering what you will hear from there on April 8th. Any questions?
Thank you for this.
Okay, well, no, you get to discuss the referendum board discussion is what I put up next, so that if you wanted me to check into other things, or you want to discuss among yourselves about your thinking around the referendum, you have some time to build it.
I feel like with this being pretty preliminary, after like the April 8th meeting, when we come in for getting to more of the meat and potatoes, we'll probably be, if we can add this referendum question on that, to put on there, so I think that might, start a little bit more.
I agree. A lot more, right?
I just wanted you to see preliminarily that our budget looks based on some of these things. Now, we are going to load some of those expenditures in. We do know some of our pricing, for example, our work is going up quite a bit. But there are other things that we this year hadn't built in as much money as we could have. That is going to increase for next year, our revenue stream. So there's a lot of moving parts, and even in April, it's going to be an estimate, but it's the best that we have at that time so that you can make an informed decision.
Kim, I know that in terms of this kind of cost savings, I know this might be for the summer school conversation, but do we have any funds in our community outreach fund, that 120?
Fund 80?
180?
No, we don't have a Fund 80, which is something that is on my docket of things to look into, which is why this grant gives us a little buffer time. And if we hire someone with the intention of using part of their day to support the community engagement piece, we can get started with it before, rushing with everything between the referendum and all the other things that the school's engaged in right now.
I'm curious, I know some schools do community outreach for enrichment programs for the summer. So it's a small cost to families, but some families are able to take those competitions right now, but it's almost a way of bringing in some money. Then you open up to other schools as well, but
Funding. Okay, thanks. Hopefully, we have more information and more specifics on April 8th. Okay, E-rate. Get ready. There's a lot to digest in this. It's taking me a long time to sort of get this, and Julie's going to weigh in as we talk through it. So E-rate is a program that helps offset some of the things that we do for internet services. There's two categories. There's category 1, and that pays for just the internet services. So we're not talking about really that tonight because it's Spectrum, and we've already signed the contract for next year with Spectrum to offset our internet costs. And in fact, we're going to go down about $100 a month next year with our new contract. It's our C2 budget that we're really going to talk about tonight. As we're going to look at some quotes from some bidders that we need to decide on tonight, moving forward for the next 5 years. So E-rate is a 5-year process. It's administered by USAC, and it's really about internal connections. So think about, E-rate does not help with buying of Chromebooks, for example. E-rate does not help with offset costs that are hardware costs. It's about getting the internet service in. What our discount rate is. The discount rate is based on our free and reduced lunch status. Our category budget, as I talked about, is already set for internet services with Spectrum. So some context around E-rate for review specifically is that in 2021, we were awarded about $77,000 for our C2 budget. That's all of the things like switches, why am I not thinking of? Switches, access points, support for making sure we're staying online and there's no outages. That's what the C2 budget is. Our discount is set at 60%. That's what it was set at 2021, and it goes for 5 years. So this C2 budget ends in 2026. So when we're talking about what we're talking about tonight, this is new funds from 2026 out 5 years. The new budget won't start this year. We still have some funds left from the 2021 budget. So E-rate, our discount is set at 60%. When we have, in 2021, when we were awarded $77,000, that means we have to spend $77,000 of money and we are reimbursed $46,000. So E-rate says a school your size in a rural community is expected to spend about $77,000 to have good internet service. And we will reimburse you 60% of that, which is $46,000. Does that make sense? It's a lot to digest. When the C2 budget is spent, that's all for the 5 years. So once we spend the $77,000 and we get that $46,000, there's no more money until it re-ups, and that's in 2026. Right now, we have $26,000 remaining, which means we can spend $26,000 and we will be reimbursed about $16,000. That will go for our support and any upgrades that you want to put in place for the next 2 years. And then it starts over. A little bit more context is over the past 3 years, we've spent about $51,000 in support. We have not done any upgrades through E-rate. It's all been to support the network. So our goal is to do some upgrades, but to have the lowest support cost on our end, so we have money to do those upgrades eventually. Because currently, with $16,000, with $26,000 left, we have about next year of support and a little bit more of the following year that we can tap into E-rate, and then the rest comes all out of district funding. Does that make sense?
How are we thinking about maybe $27,000 for the next 2 years? Not just
We won't. It's gonna have to come out of Fund 10. Yeah. So, our consultant helped us with the E-rate process. The E-rate process is you start collecting bids. They're all based on a form you fill out. It's called a 460 form. You tell the bidders what you want them to bid. So we want this amount of access points. We want these number of switches. You give them the information, and then the bids come in through email. And bids are weighed on 4 criteria, because part of this process is to prove to E-rate that we are being fiscally responsible with the money that they award us. So bids are, when the bids come in, they're weighed on 4 different things. Prior experience with a vendor is given some priority, but the biggest thing that you weigh is how much things cost. Again, it makes sense, right? They're giving you money, they don't want you misspending it. Bid winners are notified, and tonight that's what we're really going to talk about, is what are the 3 bids that I'm going to put in front of you and have some discussion around, and who we want to award it to. And then the final contract terms are negotiated after we award the bidder, the bidder that we choose. The contract, you can continue to negotiate with them, and we have to submit it by March 27th. So the turnaround is very quick. Okay, so we received, I think, 12 bids. Of the 12 bids, they were eliminated based on some of those bids did not meet all the criteria. Like they just didn't bid on something, or they bid on the wrong thing. And then some bids were way out of line with pricing. So these are the three bids that we are speaking about tonight. All of the bids bid on labor, 14 switches, wiring and cabling, and a first year of some licensing that happens. These bids, bidder 3 and bidder 5, and I screwed up as well, bid on 39 access points. Currently, we have 26 in our school. It's not enough. The teachers are losing connectivity. I lose connectivity. So it's going to increase our access points to 39. The difference between 3 and 5 is really going to be in the support costs and in their pricing for the hardware. So this row right here is all about the materials. So bidder 3's materials cost $63,000. Bidder 5 is 97, bidder 6 is 85. The difference between bidder 6 and the other two is that these two bids are bidding on 3x3 access points. If you have questions about that, Julie is the one that asked. And this last bidder would not bid on 3x3. He was very firm. His organization was very firm in that we don't need 3x3s. 2x2s will be fine. And he has increased access points to 49 instead of 39. So I put that over there so that you could see that. Either way, there's 13 more access points in our school than there would be today. So the connectivity will be better. When we put this out to bid, it was complicated because a couple of the organizations, because they only wanted to bid on 3x3s, we had to then reach out to other organizations and say, okay, we want you to bid on 3x3s. So it was a complicated process so that we could try to get as close to apples as we could. Like I said, the last bid, bidder 6, he wouldn't change. All 3 of these companies have a presence in this area. All 3 of these companies have very good references, strong companies. I guess the other thing to know is that the bid that we look at in choosing, we should likely also pick that same person to do our support. So it's one in the same. And then following this E-rate this tonight, the next step for Julie and I, and I'll probably be working with the consultants a little bit, is to then do an RFP for the other services that we need to see if we can get that lowered as well. So trying to look for cost savings. And at another board meeting, we will also talk about what is the pacing that we want for these things to be installed and occur, because again, new money doesn't happen until 2026. And we're looking at the very least at $63,000 worth of upgrades, and obviously at the most $97,000 worth of upgrades that will have to come out of our general fund because we do not have enough E-rate money to cover that. Julie, did you want to add anything?
I was just gonna ask Julie if you could clarify, not specifically, which is kind of somewhat technically the difference between 2x2 and 3x3.
The 3x3 is, it's pretty much antenna width, like how much space you're going to cover. And the 3x3s are more reliable than the 2x2s. So if, say that every single room had a 2x2, and so you had 4 rooms in the junior high, and say Kristen's room went out during testing or something, it went down. The other, if it was a 3x3, those 3x3s would be able to give her connectivity so her students would have access to their Chromebooks. A 2x2 would not have that range to get through the walls to get to the other classrooms.
It's essentially the same concept as like a tri-band mesh network.
Yes.
As opposed to your traditional mesh network.
Yes. And the other thing too, and Kim and I have talked about it, is that when we come to replace these in 5 years or however long, what's easier to replace, 39 or 49, when you're looking at that
I know
number?
Julie made that comment today, and that was something I totally hadn't thought about, is that in the long run, will it save us money anyway, because we're not replacing as many 2x2s?
Or is there any potential in your mind, Julie, that the 2x2 could become obsolete with school equipment?
I just, from what I've read, and I've done a lot of reading on it since Kim asked the question, is that the 2x2s are just not as reliable as 3x3s. So I'm thinking that that is something that's going to get phased out. They're going to go with the higher, more antennas, more span, so that, you know, that's what they're working with instead of these little one-room access points.
And you have to wire each of those access points.
Yeah.
So additional access points means
More
more
wire.
expense in doing the wiring.
And then you have 49 access points. We need more switches for the 49 access
More
points as
ports.
opposed, yep, more ports. So everything ends up being more when you put in those 2x2s.
Would it be fair to say that if we had more of the 2x2 access points, it would create a more reliable network than the amount we have now?
Oh, anything would be better than what we have now. Right now, we're dealing with some antiquated access points that are kind of just trickling along. But the 2x2s would definitely be better. The 3x3s would be ideal.
Thank you.
Mhm.
To me, that's just better 6 out.
Well, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that entirely. As long as they're still viable, and we have, 13 more access points, and we have kind of a large layout of the school with 13 additional access points, 39 could make it functional. And if, we're talking about the base referendum, there's a pretty significant difference between 3, 5, and 6.
Wiring.
Well, right, but my point there is that that's why I asked about the viability. We're talking about internet signal, so it's not like it's a Wi-Fi signal. The 2x2s aren't gonna not work, they're not gonna not be functional to gain access to the internet with. They just may not have as high end speeds as what, so potential future equipment might be able to have.
One, to the point of, she said this example was something goes down Mr. Gentry's classroom, they can't get access. And I think from the practicality standpoint of actually teaching kids, that is extremely frustrating and hard to do, especially for one-on-one Chromebooks. So we invested in the Chromebooks, we invest in that learning, but this is a proper investment to spend some money on and not.
I think, I don't wanna just guess, but with bidder 6 saying they would have the additional 13 access points, I think that the whole point of that is redundancy. It reduces the possibility that one of them going down would have as big an impact, that it was less of them.
Or the physical location of each of the access points. So if this one goes out, hey, there's one right there, because we have more access points, it'll direct you that one. Or if this one gets filled up, which does happen with access points, it will defer to the other one.
The other thing I want to point out, and Julie and I talked about this today, is the support that's really different in bidder 6. And so bidder 6 has done a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work all over. But the difference between their support is called VMIC, and the support that the other two is called BITS. Basically, what you're paying for in their support is 24/7 proactivity in the support for outage detection. In VMIC, it's the opposite. If an outage happens, then they deal with it. So the support is really where the difference is.
I think I went this last time.
That's okay.
So 3 and 5 have 24/7
Yes.
support, and 6 is more specialized if there's an issue. that you have support without specific outage. You're like, figure out.
I mean, I
Less
think they
the-
would-
less the
yeah.
support that we have.
I mean, I think we would still have support, but it wouldn't be what we're used to. And one of the things that Julie and I asked Julie to do, and our K-12 person, is to do a needs assessment. And one of the reasons I had them do a needs assessment, they looked at 2 weeks of span of how they spend their time, is I want to look at what MS, for a managed service provider services, what can we shift to Julie, or what can we shift off Julie to them to make sure we're getting our money's worth of support, and to see if there's any savings that we can have, because I don't want us to be in this place again where we have no money for upgrades, because we've spent it all on supports for E-rate. Right now, the annual cost from bidder 3 is, the annual cost for support for bidder 3 is less than we pay right now to K-12. For bidder 5 is a little bit more, obviously bidder 6 is a lot less. The less support we have going in that C2 category, the less we're draining off of E-rate, and the more money we have for upgrades in the next round of things. It's not gonna help us this round, because this round, we're using all that money for support.
So K-12 is there one?
Yes.
And did you work with them to see if there's any additional savings they give us?
So
Did you work with them?
when you do this process, it's not ethical you ask them to give you your best price, all 3 of them give your best price. What we did do was based on things that a certain vendor didn't want to bid on, we changed it so that everybody would have the opportunity to bid in the same way. Does that make sense? So, for instance, we gave the opportunity to bidder 6 to bid on 39 access points, 3x3s. They didn't want to. So, okay, but you had the opportunity. What you can't do is start negotiating in those bid wars. That's not ethical. And it would defeat the process of what we're doing.
Assumption is the 3x3 is a more expensive access point.
However, the access points for bidder 3 and bidder 5 are the exact same. The exact same model and exact same, description.
I wish Mike was here to speak to the value of being able to sell something with brand to it. The market. That's true.
Oh, Julie?
And Kim, the licensing, remember they put the licensing into the device price? Didn't somebody put the licensing? That's why there's the difference in the licensing as well?
I think though yes, I agree. Yes, you're right, Julie. But the bottom line is really, I have these broken out for you, but the bottom line is the total cost.
Julie, can you clarify what you say, are you talking about the annual price?
No, there's a licensing price too, that one of them, they took it out of the device price, the equipment price, and had it as a different line item as opposed to, I think that the top one, whichever, I can't see the numbers, but whichever one is the larger number had the licensing included in their price for the units. The other one had it broken out, it was like on a different line.
Yeah, it was just, the licensing for all of it is included in all of the
So all,
numbers. Yes,
this is full cost.
Yes.
All the life.
yes. It's just the way it was broken out was different. So the only difference, that's why I broke it out for you, is that, because one of them also, when they bid, put a separate bid in for cabling. So part of their, so you have to take it, add them together, and create the final cost.
Like, that's one question.
Yes.
I thought you said that one.
Yep, cabling, wiring, 14 switches, labor, first year of licensing is in there. And then for bidder 3 and 5, 39 access points that are 3x3. No firewall is included in those pricing. Because one of the bidders did not want to bid on a firewall, didn't think we needed it, because we have current firewalls. So that's why it became complicated, because we wanted to accommodate.
Base did change.
Yeah, and we wanted to accommodate what people were talking about, but if we did that for one, we had to do it for all. But what we couldn't do is talk to them about pricing. It's give us your best.
So
Here we are.
the work that you and Julie did, do you guys have a recommendation, at least one not to choose, then we go from there?
I think that today, based on my conversation with Julie, we said no to bidder 6, even though it is the cheaper amount. We felt like the support and the 3x3s were more important. And then, I mean, obviously the recommendation, there's a $30,000 difference between the other two, would be when they're the exact same.
So then I make a motion,
Sure.
we can make a motion still.
Oh, you can, okay, sorry, go ahead. Go on, make one. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
We're not there yet anyway.
So I appreciate the recommendation about not including bidder 6, but I just want to throw something out here that we're, we have to be fiscally conscious, if not conservative, what we're doing. Although I definitely appreciate the desire to have state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line, future-proof.
Now, just to be clear, this probably is not state-of-the-art art technology, correct?
Today?
No, these bits, so this is what,
This is middle of the line.
okay.
Yeah, we didn't go for
This
the
is,
Cadillac.
We didn't go for Cadillac. Yeah.
so we're driving the Chevy.
Okay, so, don't make fun of me.
I'm driving the Vermont.
Okay, so, maybe that's state of the art, but the higher end, we're not, I don't want to stay away from that. But I think we have some precautions. You're talking about, even if you go with middle bid, $70,000 for, that's a staff salary. Something that can be hands-on with kids. I definitely appreciate the need for that service and education role. Definitely don't need to be on the internet connection places, hands-on. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, I'm just saying that we should all seriously consider the recommendation, spending an additional $70,000. Just
Dave, do you remember the total cost that we spent last time that this was?
I don't. It was part of a larger building project.
Yeah,
And we did the networking portion and the access points.
it was all part of Nexus.
Yeah.
So it was all rolled into that
Right.
roughly $10 million project.
And this is basically a 5-year contract, isn't it?
Yeah, it is starting in 2026.
Starting in 2026, okay.
What?
One clarification on that for some period. The total cost. The annual cost of support or support.
Yeah.
Cost.
What was I gonna say about that? Yeah, so the issue is because we don't have any E-rate money, the column that says price has got to come on. If we decide over the next 2 years, we need to do these upgrades as coming out of our general fund, we get to find money in our general fund, that's not reimbursable. So, that's part of, building the budget. I started to do that, put that into our expenditures, and there may be places where, Julie reached out today to talk about Chromebooks, where we could make some changes maybe that would save us money in the area of technology to get us to be able to do so in fifth grade, but I mean, they're substantial, which is why I'm saying we have to work on the support piece of it, because we have to have money in our next round, because between 2026 and 2031, we're gonna need to upgrade again.
So as far as support, listening to you talk, I felt like it was like feeling from Peter to St. Paul. Have you and Julie done any type of breakdown and kind of, like, how does this run right now with our support? If we break this down by month, how does this run with what we're paying for support right now?
I don't understand what you're asking.
So if you take if we're paying $10,000 a month for support right now for K-12, what is our number right now with that compared to this support number?
So we pay a little over $17,000 a year to K-12 for this portion of the support they give us. We pay close to $40,000 a year to K-12, but the difference between $40,000 and $17,000 is that those funds cannot be e-ratable because they're not supporting us on internet services. So there's a support we get from K-12 that doesn't fall into this category. And that's what I'm gonna put the RFP out about. I needed to get through this E-rate stuff and understanding this, because there's a timetable. Then, Julie and I are gonna, and probably with help from the consultant, put an RFP together in the same way we just did these bids. Put it out and say, okay, what can you offer us?
So what is the $3,450 that we spend monthly for K-12?
Okay, so 3,000, that is the MSP part of our contract with them, so that's the part that we pay them that is outside of E-rate. So we pay Alex to come in, and he works at Chromebooks, or anything he does with Clever Touch, or anytime he takes over my screen and tries to help with that. Those are all things that are not E-rateable, because it's not about the internet service. Anything to do with Windows is not E-rateable.
So,
Julie, just a minute, am I speaking correctly?
Yeah, well, him coming in is just part of the collective. He doesn't like get paid specifically for coming in. That's just part of the whole thing that he comes in for. So what they do is obviously the 24/7 help desk. They manage the firewall. They do the data loss response. They work on the workstations. They do, like, anytime our printers, disconnect from the server, they have to, work on the print servers. They do all the remote access. They do the 24-hour monitoring of the servers. I'll get a phone call on a Saturday morning from Brian saying, hey, your servers are down. Can you go restart them after we've had a storm? That kind of stuff. So there's always that 24-hour service that they're doing on the back end that we don't ever see or hear because they're just taking care of it. And they also do all the backups. So
Some of that falls into E-ratable, some of it isn't. So that's why we're talking about it separate. This support is specifically for internet connectivity, making sure that we don't have outages or cybersecurity issues.
So what Julie is talking about is a separate level of support.
We do have a separate level of support, yes.
So when we're looking at that pricing itemized, as I was talking about, 3,450, that's like a, in addition to.
Yeah, that's what the RFP would be for. So that, again, my goal is to continue to look at where we can be more efficient. Are there things that we could shift either way to Julie or to them and get more bang for our buck? I don't know until we dig into the needs assessment. So when we looked at the help tickets over the course of the year, there's about 38 hours on some networking stuff, right? So that told me one thing about what we're spending, what is K-12 right now spending their time on. That is E-ratable. So what I'm trying to do is get all that breakdown so that we understand where the funds are going.
Support between bidder 3 and bidder 5, as far as what they offer.
Yes. Apples to apples on that.
So the major factor in difference in bidder 6 is that it isn't the 24/7 monitoring that you were talking about, where if their servers went down, you would find out that they got there Monday morning.
Right.
Or somebody got a hold of you and said the website's not.
Yeah.
And is that something that would impact teachers and their access to being able to do work from home over the weekend?
Not work for, they would be able to work from home as long as their internet was working, but if they came here like Kristen always does over the weekend, she wouldn't be able to print, she wouldn't be able to access her computer if that stuff was down.
What about the kids on Chromebooks?
Eventually they would be taken care of, where, you know, previously we'd be down for days. So,
Thank you.
Well, I can understand from a service provider standpoint why the support is so much more affordable than 6, which is not obviously 24-hour watching. But it's about those problems. Right, and sort of once the last thing I want to do is go through everything, get a decision to staff down.
But I think downtime is, there's a cost to that as well. Our staff wants it on Monday and no one can work on their own during the potentially that day. But I would spend a morning on trying to get everything done. So I guess from a staff perspective, is 24/7 support a must? You guys are here, you guys know better than us.
I go on my computer a lot at night after I'm done with being here, taking care of family's life. Like 10 o'clock at night, I'll go on my computer, but then again, it's my own internet, it's not the school.
You're not talking about.
But I do come here as well, like Kristen, I live here close, so I do come here if I need to, if I have some upcoming curriculum. We're doing the Native Americans right now, so I do have to come over to have that ready to go on Monday morning when the printers are available and not down and stuff like that.
I work a lot of meetings as well.
I'm sorry, so I can work that.
I said I work a lot of meetings as well.
Coming in here, so
What's that?
coming in here.
And here at home, through an extender.
oh yeah, Sue does, she remotes in through the net extender, so she's actually in her physical
Yeah.
desktop here when she's working from home.
And if we were down.
She wouldn't be able to do that. Got many of those phone calls.
Oh, yeah.
I think something else to consider is if it's down during the day or like on a Monday, yeah, I can find something else for my class to be able to be on their Chromebooks, but all my lessons are in the cloud in the base, and then I can't access them, so I'm trying to come up with an entire day, hour, whatever backup plan. I don't have paper copies of everything.
And we wouldn't be able to print.
Just in case.
So the other piece of it is if spectrum goes down, you don't have internet access, you would be able to print.
Yes.
This does bring up a concern that I have, and, I'm just, from my own personal perspective here, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but one concern I have, and I've always had with internet in classrooms, is, and I'm not saying this about anybody here, I get concerned that having such a strong, powerful tool lends itself to independence, and the notion that we would be without internet for a day would be so negatively impactful for the students would have so many qualified that is kind of a tough pill to swallow. Yeah. I get nervous that numbers provide internet, right? I know it's
students who have augmented devices or communication devices at lunch, or they do trip out for lunch. I'm a teacher, so I'm an app, but I don't know what you guys do for your daily jobs. You guys didn't have access to the internet to speak of. So, I mean, it's kind of 20. I don't think it doesn't diminish the teaching in the classroom as much as it does the access and the tools they have to be in front of kids and do that.
Totally acknowledge that. Just like you said, we're talking about potentially one day interruption. And again, we don't really know, because we don't know what the support would be like for the company. Yeah, they don't provide 24/7 access, maybe that's because when they need to provide service, they're counting on the spot, and they're right there, that's just people who need them. So it's not like we're eliminating the potential that we may have interruptions like going from one to the other. We're just talking about potentially restoring service faster. So we're not safeguarding against the potential interruption more so.
Dave, what's your
Well, with the BMIC, is there, like, we say 24/7, what is BMIC? Is that like 8 by 5?
So the way it was explained to me, and I've been in a lot of really great discussion about this, the way it was explained to me is that MIPS is like a retainer. Like you're paying that much money for whether you use it or not in the event, right? So the risk is less because you're saying it's an insurance policy. The BMIC is more accurately based on if there was an outage, you would pull money from that versus having it as a retainer. So if you think, I'm trying to think of somebody you would have on retainer. My husband works in advertising and they have a retainer on whether they do X amount during the month or not. They still get paid. So that's sort of what the difference is. That was explained to me between MIBS and EMIS.
So is there an additional fee for the support? So we go with the BMIC, come in Monday, cover the $2,000, just pay us the, support for a month. Is there a fee we pay, or that's the net support right there?
Or 5 years later, if you've had a bunch of incidents, and now you call in, I understood what you're saying.
No, because it's every year. It's over the course of 5 years.
Okay, so after, in November then of that year, if you had a bunch of calls for that current year under BMIC, then you would start to, because you said you have a retainer, it's like an insurance policy. It doesn't matter how many incidents you have, they're there. So I would assume that BMIC means you have X number or X amount of time that they would come and do support.
Right.
Before you start getting any charges.
Right, but the idea is that the internet, I mean, Julie said that maybe it went down 5 times this past year. And when we looked at the data, there was about 38 hours spent on that.
So when it goes down, is it because of the server, is it because of the ISP?
We've had numerous things happen. I mean, it has been part of like power outages or brownouts where it's just knocked something out and they've had to, find it. We had a switch that went down. We had a UPS that went down. Multiple things, yeah. Always
Have you had
varies.
any issues with the access points themselves?
We've had a couple access points where we've had to replace them and or restart them, pull them out, reset them and stuff
If
like
they
that.
need to be replaced, is that something that they come in on the weekend to do it? or-
No, they wouldn't come in on the weekend too.
Okay.
It would be a Monday morning thing.
Gotcha.
Is this actually, that would be true for any of them?
That I don't know. I don't know what the BMIC, what their service plan would be. I mean, it could be on a as need, is it high priority? Do you have 500 people out or do you have 50 students out? I don't know.
Kim, what is your recommendation?
I feel safest with bidder 3. even though, it is $70,000 difference. Based on my conversation with Julie and even the consultant, Bidder Six has a very good, reputation and definitely, I don't think is putting subpar things in a building for sure. But I feel more confident with Bidder Three because of the support that they offer and where we are right now. In that, and I also feel confident that we can negotiate that support down after the award.
I think if I'm going to the board of learn, I'll just experience one and know more in the next bit. It was all very new to us when it came in under the Nexus project. We knew we wanted access points, and they advised what they wanted to put in, and they told us, you know, how great everything would work. And back then, they even said if one goes out, then it's smart enough to pick up with the other ones. The same thing that we're talking about tonight.
That's what it was designed.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're. That's the bill we're told.
That one other thing that I want to throw out here, and I'm not against going to Bidder Three, but that's the best direction to go. One additional thing about Bidder Six, I personally find feeling is I do contract work. And one of the things that I try to do to be fair with my contract work is to not upsell or oversell customers with things that they don't need or are necessary. And based on what we're discussing, it does seem like Bidder Six is the type of contractor who operates on next to the same level. Of course, on the phone, $70,000, I find it attractive. Everyone agrees that Bidder Three is the best way to go.
Can we go back to them and just get more clarification from Bidder Three and Bidder Six on exactly what support means? And
Well, Bidder Three, it's the same support that Bidder Three and Bidder Five have, the same support for, network. I could go back, but we will have to have another board meeting this week to, vote, because the, yeah, because we have to have it signed by the 27th.
I mean, the support has to be somewhat within the same confines based on what the bidding requirements were.
Yes, right.
They have to be almost identical. If that's the whole year.
we phone a friend and ask Jim because well, you went from the Nexus program to this, like,
Come on.
any advice to it?
Can I respond?
Oh, sure.
Not really, this is out of my wheelhouse. Back when we did this 10 years ago, it was brand new. So they came in and basically did all the proposals. I can't even see the screen from here, so I don't even know if Bidder 3, 5, 6, I don't know what any of those say. I can't even read that.
Sorry.
Kind of 24/7 support or not is the biggest difference from Bidder 3 to Bidder 6, and 2x2 or 3x3.
My only experience from the work side is the 3x3. Yes, there's not as many of them, but they cover a wider area. So if it goes down to one location, 2 other points will pick up that area, and that would be preferable. 24/7 sounds like the way we've always had it in the past to keep everything going. I fully support that. We want to have the kids to have access and the staff to have access to their technology as often as possible. We don't want that. It's not it's the only thing we're relying on, but it's a lot of ways that the kids get special content they're not going to get through books or paper when we're down.
I appreciate that point. Maybe I'm from an old school perspective where I
I don't look at it as
If you buy a little bit more advanced technology, then you have the opportunity or possibility to push the next purchase off by a year or two. Well, nothing future-proof in technology.
Right, yeah. The idea is future safeguard.
Right, sure.
The back and forth, I think we should make a motion to choose better three from kids' recommendation or different conversation. I don't want the staff or students of school to be down at all, so that 24/7 support is important to me. So I would make a motion that we move forward with better three.
All right.
Who seconded? Joe?
Joe
Do
seconded.
we have to wait till action items?
Oh, sorry.
Well, that's the way it is on the agenda.
But you can hold that as the motion and then
Yeah.
second.
All right, did you want to have any more conversation on it, Elaine? I hope that it was at least digestible, but it's a lot of information, to sort of absorb. Okay, staffing update is that.
As far as the staffing update, it's really just the sections per grade level, not per se like who's teaching what. So at this point, I just took and move sections up. So we have 2 sections in first grade, we'll move them up 2 sections in second grade. Made a little chart showing that, I don't know if you share that. Because I like to kind of keep that like current. So I literally just took the kids that we have sitting in seats right now and looked at that for our projections. But then obviously we have open enrollments to consider. So when we approve open enrollments, I will plot those numbers in so that you will always be able to see like up to date where our numbers are at. If kids leave, then I take them off. So I try to be pretty accurate with how many kids would be sitting in a seat next year. 4K is always a wonder because we have like certain people that have come in that we have on a list, but then come July and August, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, my kid is 4. So that's always all of a sudden we get 10. So that number might look low right now, but again, I'm just putting just the number of what we know are out there. So all I did was just move sections forward, so we would be 2 sections throughout, except for that our current third grade, that is 3 sections, I have moved them up to 3 sections in fourth grade. And then just keeping all of our other positions current what they are. As far as like, yeah, so as far as like for special ed teachers and just
Special.
and specials.
What's that put our class sizes in?
So typically they would just be exactly what they are this year. So right around 20. I'm going to share that with them or share that because I put like what our
There was
current
no
count
class
is.
size bigger than 22.
Yeah, so you would just take, except for the 7th grade moving up to 8.
Yes, you're right,
Will
and we have that cap.
Because they're currently right now at 27. So, yeah. And that's why we have them. But, yeah, so right now I just moved everybody up, so class sizes would be exactly what they are. Obviously, once I put in open enrolling kids or any new students, that can change. So that's why I like to keep you updated on that, and I just keep plugging in numbers when I know. So once open enrollment is done, and we know people that are for sure coming, well, add those in there because that's gonna make a difference.
Crystal updates, a spreadsheet that I have about open enrollment, I mean, not open enrollment, for as well. Okay, recording of open school board meetings, Brian, you asked for this to be.
Yeah, so this was something I think, would be beneficial for our district, is if we record and stream our board meetings on YouTube. I know it would be helpful to get more input from people who can't make it to work. People can go back and watch meetings after the meeting when it's convenient for them. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, that because we already have the school software, we pay for the Google
Yeah.
access, that there wouldn't be a cost.
We are allowed to stream and we can have them,
Archive.
yep, archived, no problem.
So the only cost might be if there's a camera.
Right, and I'm messing with one now to see if it'll work. So.
Okay. Part of that too is I think we have to reconfigure how this looks, so it faces us, but I think it's beneficial just for people to have more access to the meetings and the conversations that we're having.
And on the Google platform, is that something that's publicly set up as being publicly accessible?
Yep.
Not only during the meeting, but after the meeting, the archives?
We could just add it to the board page or whatever, right next to the minutes, just the link to the meeting.
Okay.
Is it done through a Google platform? or is that-
YouTube, it would be through YouTube, yep, school
Oh, it's
YouTube
through
account, yep.
So what part of it is Google then?
Well, because YouTube is a part of Google and we pay for the Educator Plus, we all get a larger YouTube account. So we can live stream, we can archive, we can do all that
Okay.
with our accounts.
So I know a lot of schools do this, I think it's beneficial. A lot of boards do this, actually. We don't record anymore. So I guess, or communicate with the communities.
I've always supported this. More eyes and ears that we have that are aware of what's going on a regular basis, the better it is for the district.
Right, any more discussion? The action item is. Okay, summer school 2024, Jenny is going to talk to you about some of the summer school planning that we've started and what she's done, and then I'll talk to you a little bit more about the costs.
All right, so we're in the very initial stages of planning summer school, and it was based on the assumption that we could use the grant money for summer school, and now we can't really use the grant money for summer school, so I really don't have a lot of concrete things to share. So we're still waiting to hear from the DPI, and Kymington has been working on what the grant can cover, what the grant can't cover, what the costing would be, all that fun thing. So we can't really plan until we know what we can afford. I did send out a survey to both the teachers and the support staff to gauge interest, and the survey included questions like, how many days a week would you want to come to have summer school? What would be a better start day? Do you want to teach like the Jumpstart remedial classes? Do you want to teach fun classes? And I've gotten the best number of people who are interested I've had in a long time, with 11 staff members and 6 support staff members that are interested, which is very fantastic. Now, of course, some of that depends on what the actual dates are, because some people said, well, if it's this dates I can't, but the fact that there's interest, I think that's a really good thing. Most people preferred a 4-day week instead of a 5-day week. Historically, like I taught summer school, like when I first started for a very long time, it was 4 days a week because a lot of families went out of town on Fridays. Staff wanted to do things, have an extended weekend. Not last year's summer school. The year before, we did 5 days, and I can't remember what we did before that, and the attendance was greatly reduced on Friday. So it doesn't really make sense if we're gonna offer these programs for kids and then no one's showing up to them on a Friday, just to keep it Monday to Thursday, and it might get actually more people to come because we're not worried that they're missing. We're thinking about doing July 8th through this August 1st, Monday through Thursday, which would be 16 contact days with students. But what that's gonna look like, we don't know, other than Jumpstart that we're probably gonna have. It'll depend on what the funding is, what the board approves in terms of enrichment classes. Something we thought about to offset costs is for the enrichment classes, if somebody wants to do like a cooking class or a science class, that would require additional materials to have an enrollment fee just for that class. So an extra $5 a kid, but of course it would have to be used just in that class, like we can't make money off of it, but it would at least cover the cost of supplies. But other than that, it's all dependent on what funding we can get and what we can afford to do.
So I think, the reason we put forth the survey is to try to get as many of our teachers teaching. And so we wanted to see what the preference was around start time, the number of weeks that they would feel comfortable doing it, and then the number of days. So this breaks down 6 options, but really 3 options in each. Well, it has 6 options, but A lot of them are the same. The first three are have enrichment and Jumpstart classes. 4, 5, and 6 have just the Jumpstart classes. What we're hoping for with the grant is that the grant will cover the cost of offering enrichment classes. So the teachers teaching the enrichment classes, salary or pay would come out of that funding. So if you look at option 1 is a 3-week option. Option 1 and 4 are 3 weeks, 2 and 5 are 4 weeks, and 5 and 6 are 5 weeks. Based on the survey results that we have from teachers, I think it is going to land on a 4-week option, 4 days a week. And then it's more, what the board is being asked today is to approve the amount the teachers would get paid hourly and a stipend for the summer school coordinator. So if you look at the total, option 1, 2, and 3 here, that's the total amount if there was no grant funding allowed and we did enrichment. If you look at the green is assuming we get some grant funding, and the green shows you what we would be paying with the grant funding for enrichment classes. And then Jumpstart only, 4, 5, and 6, that's the cost that we are estimating would happen if we did Jumpstart with no enrichment. The only thing that's not really included in here are educational assistant costs. We won't know those until we know which of our students in special ed will be part of.
And wouldn't that go under extended school year, so like the 8 months could pay for their, it wouldn't have to come out of our fund.
I don't know, I'd have to look into that, good question.
So
I would
I'm
assume
pretty
that you
confident
can,
that
yes, I would,
I pay for all my pairs out of the flow through during the summer, because
but it's 33% or no?
that's the high cost for flood at the end.
Okay.
So there's more, and then also the, if you're charging for attendant cares through Medicaid,
Okay,
But
so
sure.
I'll look into what the cost would be if we have a special ed aid.
Yeah.
I figured that we could do that through the categorical, but if you're saying it can be fully funded, okay.
the other question I have is, so do all 3 administrators work over the summer as well?
Yeah.
So what is the need, in no disrespect, what is the need for a coordinator position if we have 3 administrators in the building who are already being paid on those days to be here in the summer?
So in the past, yes, I used to do this. The problem, most of the work is done in April and May. And April is like forward testing that only I take care of. So it is really to put this all together, like, so years ago when I came to the board to say, is there a possibility that someone else could do this? That's why they said yes, and that's really why. The summertime, not necessarily, I mean, I feel like, yeah, there is still work to do, but the big legwork is now getting everything set up, and then obviously getting the kids registered. I mean, that all happens before.
So like if there's behavior issues, you guys would still respond, not the coordinator?
No, the court, yeah. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I am not here, so I can obviously help out with that. So that's just when years ago, I don't remember how many years ago that was. And then when, because Tim's position was not year round, so that was when that position changed, because when Sarah Lynn was here, so years ago, that was a full year, and then they took that over, but then that position went away, and I like encompassed all that again. And so that's when I said, like, if there was a possibility that that could be taken off my plate. So that I'm just telling you the history of it, why that was that way. And this has just been COVID we didn't have, so it was the year before. Yeah. Yeah. I did it before that, and then Danielle did when she was like around. But then when she left, I took Danielle and John over too, and then I think, so then I said, can we go back to a coordinator?
High school here as well.
Yeah.
Let's see where-
So that was,
So if we charge outside of the can we do that?
It's my understanding that we cannot do it for Jumpstart.
Okay, so if we, for the enrichment, activities, can we charge families for this?
And I certainly think we should. I know one family in particular that was very anti any referendum, but was very upset they didn't have babysitting last summer. I think obviously there's families in need who I think as a school we need to make it work for those families and make it work for the families who can. This is enrichment and it's for babysitting, so I think there should certainly be a cost of bringing down enrichment. And hopefully, again, I said this in the last meeting, it gets families to get out and vote. It's important to fund schools and the money's not there. So
So
If
I,
we were to charge families for this, that you know, the school supplies, then that goes. Then that goes to make that.
I don't know the answer to that question, so I'll find that out as to, I'm really leaning on some other DAs in the area because our school's done them.
and that's what I also wondered too, if we did it through community outreach
Are you
position,
looking, Andrea?
and it was charged through community outreach specifically, then maybe the coordinator position is funded through community outreach.
Yeah, it's on my docket of things that we need to do within the district. So I will find out about what Andrea's looking at.
How many on average would you say students, like, they had any idea, like, you've done so many jumpstart off the top of your head, I know it's been like 2 years now. And then enrichment programs are 100 students, is that high, low, you just run a pilot number something?
yeah. Gosh, 120-ish. And our Jumpstart students can take like some of the enrichment too, depending. But, yeah, we are always in the hundred.
Last time we had 3 or 4 jumpstart classes at about 13 kids each. And then we had, most of the enrichment classes had like 20-some kids each. I'd say there were like 3 or 4 of those. But we also had kids who would come for just 2 sessions and then they would leave. And someone else would come later. And like, so I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it wasn't just like, oh, you're here starting date, you're here the whole morning. The kids were coming and going. We had more than just have to go over.
What numbers have kids are kind of thinking, reasonable for every, I get jumpstart, we have to be here, but like the others, everyone can almost stay, because they're doing something with the kids when they're not here, whether they're, it can be quite reasonable. Because I think it does, maybe families that want to go for the referendum, if it's not voting this time around.
So which column are we recommending?
Yeah, that's the column I would recommend is 2, but I would, in talking with Jenny today, I think that in April we will know more, or even earlier, we will know more about the grant funding. I think some of it is dependent on the grant funding and what we can charge. So we can offset some of those enrichment classes with charging for the class. I just have to understand, I'm sure you can charge because I know my kids have gone to Germantown schools and they've been charged. But I have to look into, if you can't make money on it, how you determine what that charge is and what the money can cover. Can it cover the teacher's salary or just supplies? That's the question I don't know.
You know, they're looking, like I said, that to fund the A piece of it because
Yeah.
this whole thing can be housed out of, Central Start out of this fund out of Fund 80. Then we all
You realize I can't get Fund 80 up this year, right? It's not something that, like, you just start. There's a lot of work around it and like digging and researching it.
It could be
It's-
implemented in the next school year.
I don't even know if it can be done that fast, but I can check into it. But it's not something like I can turn around for next month to see if we can use it. I don't think it's quite that easy. I feel like when I've been to workshops on it, it's more complicated than just starting a funding. Because I think there has to be a whole proposal, like, I think there's a lot that goes into it.
Probably most of them first year about funding, but there's some type of community group separate from the school that has to be associated with funding. Like, raising the fund.
No, I have briefly started to look into it, and I know, like, at Trevor Wilmot, it took them 5 years. Now, it doesn't mean it took them 5 years, it's just that superintendent couldn't get it started for 5 years, like, it was, it's on your docket, you're working on it, but it's not something that just happens. Because then everybody would have it. I'm not sure why we don't have it, but then if it was easy, everybody would access it. I think there's, qualifications, like, there's things you have to do to, yes. Like with every fund.
Okay, so there is a state statute that permits schools to charge reasonable fees for social, recreational, extracurricular summer classes and programs which are neither accredited toward graduation nor aided. Again, this is listed under my school, but, and it just says, the fees cannot be intended to defray the cost of instruction, buildings, building maintenance, apparatus.
Can you say it one more time?
Yep, sorry.
No, my computer's waiting.
Yep, it says, thus, user fees if permitted by statute are constitutional as long as they are not intended to defray the cost of instruction, buildings, building maintenance, and apparatus.
Yeah, that first part about defray the cost of instruction.
Yeah.
Is pretty plain language.
But
Yeah.
Richmond's not instruction.
Yeah,
Right, that's why I think
Oh,
there's like,
fair point,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the Richmond can be covered, not Jumpstart.
I would also reach out to the superintendent of work, Haddock, because he's really tapped into this well, make money on some of the Richmond.
Does it make sense to try to look at other summer schools that are already out now and not be on the schedule with them? Could we get track, like, kids from other, like, I know I've already got information. I heard two of them coming out soon. I don't like if we go outside of their time frame, maybe we can check those kids and be charged.
You're talking about voting places right now.
Whatever brings it in for,
100%.
students, I don't care.
Sure.
have like, they said this in the mail.
I got, email, because we went to their summer school last year.
You'll get like before that.
It'd still be over. There's only so many weeks in the summer.
Yeah, they're still, like, theirs is kind of the same sort of time frame, so if you go on the back end, or like, I know the Indiana, summers, and they end like, end of July, beginning of August, because all Illinois schools start up in a lot of private schools that do the like that, but just a thought of.
Be nice to know what those are, right? If you want to find our schedule,
So what we could do is somebody could make a motion, because we are gonna move to the action items now. And it just so happens, this is our first action item.
Yeah.
Well done. Could we go back to the column?
Yeah.
And we could say not to exceed 19,000. If that's, let's say you're gonna go with option 2, you can make a motion not to exceed 19,000. That would include if Riverview doesn't give a reimbursement. If we do, then we see the savings, but we don't have to depend, that's the motive, that's the way we want to move forward.
I think that we have to maybe wait on the exact cabinet number in case we needed, in case aides weren't able to get category? we
Yeah,
do?
I think, so it's more about the hourly rate that we're trying to pay people. So if you looked at, the grid that I put in there, this is comparable to currently what Wheatland has on the low end for teachers, and for their stipend, if we would do a 5 week. So that's why it says up to $39.60, because each, if we only have a 3 week, yeah, 4 week, 5 week.
Allows us to get there.
Right, because that is part of why, well, part of the reason we want to have competitive salary is so that our teachers stay and teach for us, which is why we sent out the survey that said, hey, what's optimal for you, so we can get our teachers in the building teaching and continuing to build those relationships with kids.
Make a motion to approve summer school pay at $33 an hour for teachers, and up to $39.60 stipend for the summer school coordinator.
Joe made the second.
Brian and Joe.
Brian and Joe. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye, the motion carries. On to the approval of the E-rate.
Yeah, I left off the from, so it would, if you want me to go back to the next.
I make a motion to approve E-rate proposal from bidder number 3.
Can I ask one question real quick? Because I think about it. With this, if this moves away from Keystone, will any of their, like, their currently are memberships, correct? Would that create any additional costs, or would costs go up? Like, is there a bundle package or something that
Trying to
is?
amalgamate all the data from K-12 through potential to try to.
That, or just will, when you said like this is E-ratable, this isn't, like you were trying to separate it out. If we move away from that on this particular category, will that create any additional things that we have their cost to go up at all or not?
Not that I'm aware of, because the support and the things that were bid on were exactly the same. And then, depending on where we go, the MSP RFP, they could bid on along with anybody else, right? So this support is for the equipment that is E-ratable and E-ratable support. And then there's a separate RFP for the other things that keep our building running. That's where Julie and I will work on, like, okay, what do we really need in here? Is there more that we can take on in the school? How does that look?
And there's no issues going from one to the other, there's no additional costs.
Okay, Brian made the motion, Joe seconded on option 3. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next is approval of a full-time pupil services position such as, but not limited to, social worker, guidance counselor, community outreach.
I have one question on this. So the long-term plan for this position, it's only a 2-year position right now. So how would that look after 2 years?
So what we are doing and what the purpose of this person is to build the capacity of our staff so that one counselor can treat the I said were immediate and had needed the most support, and the rest of the SEL needs are met through the programming that we have within the classroom. And so it really is about building capacity, coming in and doing the team teaching, and then scaffolding it off so that teachers feel comfortable and have the support that they need in the beginning, and then are able to take that piece over.
Positions, contract.
Well, they would start with a 1 year, yes. I'm gonna for sure we would make them aware that this is a grant funded position. Now, things change, right? Maybe our current counselor, something happens and she's no longer there and all that position. It's always a risk, no matter what position you take. There's no guarantees, but yes.
From a financial aspect, that it's 2 years once that grant funding is done. That's with that.
potentially, yeah.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve up to a full-time school services position using grant funding.
Is there a second?
Yes, great, yeah.
The one-year contract cover, we're gonna work it, but it's definitely a better funding.
Yeah, overall, I think what we say for grant funding.
2 1-year contracts. All right, is there a second? Brian seconds, Joe made the motion. All those in favor? Aye, motion carries. On to approval of recording to open school board meetings.
I just want to make one amendment to this, Brian, just to make sure that what you were talking about is evident in the motion. You want it streamed and recorded.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
to make a motion to approve the recording of having open board meetings, using.
And streaming.
And streaming using YouTube.
I'll second.
Brian makes the motion, Joe seconds, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we start with that tonight, Lori, then?
And future meetings, our next regular board meeting is April 22nd, 2024. There is a possibility of another meeting earlier in April,
April 8th.
so we'll have to determine if it's at that point, that will be after elections, it will be a public meeting. I believe that's when that will trigger the next election of board members.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
are there any other questions before we close? I thank the audience for your patience this evening. I know there was a lot of back and forth, and it's a good discussion from the board standpoint. We are trying to watch how the district's money is spent. I'm a taxpayer, so